Recap. Alchemy Emperor of the Divine Dao, Chapter 949. Chapter. The wind in the ravine howled like a restless spirit, carrying with it the scent of blood and death. In that fleeting instant, a streak of darkness tore through the air. A black arrow, silent, merciless, transformed into a streak of flowing light and shot straight toward the back of the young man. He had never imagined such a strike could still come. Even with the old man intercepting Ling Han, even with the battlefield already in chaos, this arrow still arrived. And it arrived far too fast. Its speed had already brushed against the terrifying threshold of the low extreme of the mountain river tier. "Elder Yang!" the young man roared, fury erupting in his chest like a volcano. In that single cry was accusation, suspicion, and hatred. In his heart, a chilling thought surged. This was no accident. This was betrayal. The old man had deliberately left an opening, had he not, to let him die, to seize that spiritual secret technique for himself. Driven by instinct and desperation, the young man twisted his body around with explosive force and slashed out with his sword. But this was no ordinary arrow. Ling Han had woven into it the power of two mystical abilities. The Eye of Truth had already pierced through all illusions, locating the weakest point in his defenses long before the arrow was released. And the arrow itself, refined from level 1 godly metal, possessed a sharpness that could tear through even the firmest protection. Shoo! The black arrow shattered the sword shadow like a phantom tearing through mist. With a dull, dreadful poo, it pierced straight into the young man's body. At the last instant, he twisted desperately, narrowly avoiding death. The arrow missed his heart, but it struck his shoulder. Blood exploded outward in a violent spray. "Ah!" His face twisted, his expression collapsing into horror. "There are patterns to eliminate immortals on this arrow." Before his voice had even finished echoing, pang! His shoulder erupted violently, as if a hidden force had detonated within him. Flesh, bone, and blood burst apart in a horrifying explosion, and in an instant, half of his body was gone. Yet immortals did not die so easily. Even reduced to such a state, the young man still clung to life. His remaining body swayed unsteadily, teetering between existence and oblivion. With trembling hands, he hurriedly retrieved a small bottle and poured its contents over himself. At once, a green radiance blossomed across his shattered body. Under this glow, his flesh began to regenerate at an astonishing speed. But the pain in his heart ran deeper than the wound. This was divine fluid, an ultimate life-saving treasure bestowed upon him by his clan. It was something he could only use once in his entire lifetime. And now, he had used it. Even if he survived today, the next time death came knocking within the mystery realm, there would be no second chance. Still, the divine fluid displayed its miraculous power. Blood, flesh, sinew, all began to regrow. The ruined half of his body was rapidly reconstructing itself, life force surging once more. Yet fate had already turned its gaze upon him. At that very moment, several black shadows shot toward him like a rain of arrows. In the chaos of battle, his attention had been completely consumed by Ling Han and Shui Yanyu. How could he have anticipated a third threat lurking in the shadows? He was utterly unprepared. The shadows struck. In an instant, they wrapped tightly around him. Only then did he see clearly. They were branches. Thick, writhing, sinister branches that extended from a massive tree rooted deep within the ravine. The demonic tree. Ah! His scream tore through the air, filled with despair. The branches pierced into his wounds without mercy, burrowing into his flesh. They drank greedily, extracting his blood, his essence, his life itself. The demonic tree's power was already terrifying. Even at full strength, breaking free would have cost him dearly. Now, gravely wounded and weakened, he had no chance at all. His body began to shrivel at a visible pace. His skin sagged, his muscles withered, and his vitality was drained away as if swallowed by an invisible abyss. Blood and flesh, the very essence of a cultivator, were being devoured. "Demonic tree, how dare you!" The old man from the Lang clan could no longer ignore the situation. Abandoning Ling Han, he swung his saber with furious force. His strength was indeed formidable. Against Ling Han, it had seemed ineffective due to Ling Han's monstrous physique, but the demonic tree was no such existence. Under the old man's relentless slashes, the branches recoiled and loosened, retreating reluctantly. Its roots lay deep within the ravine, where its power was at its peak. Outside of that domain, Even it had limits. But it was too late. The young man had already been grievously injured. After being drained by the demonic tree, he had become nothing more than a withered husk. Even if he still clung to life, it was only by a thread. Ah! Just as the old man caught the dying youth, another scream rang out behind him. He turned, and what he saw caused his blood to freeze. Shui Yanyu's sword had already pierced cleanly through the heart of the other young man. There was no hesitation, no mercy. That strike ensured absolute death. The old man trembled. Rage surged through him like wildfire, his entire body shaking uncontrollably. This outcome was beyond anything he had imagined. Two opponents, one merely at the Mountain River tier, the other only at the Shattering Void tier. And yet, the tables had turned so completely. His own side had suffered catastrophic losses. His talent had never been exceptional. Reaching the Mountain River tier had already exhausted his potential. And yet, his clan had invested heavily in him, granting him vast quantities of Mountain River stones. Their purpose had been simple: to forge him into an invincible figure within the low extreme, a blade for the clan. For 10,000 years, he had fulfilled that role flawlessly. But now, everything had collapsed. Two promising heirs of the Lang clan. One was dead. The other was crippled beyond recovery. How could he possibly explain this? His eyes burned with fury, as if flames were about to burst forth. "You all deserve to die," he roared. Linghan merely shook his head calmly, his voice steady and cold. "The evils we bring upon ourselves are the hardest to endure." The old man cast the crippled youth aside like discarded refuse. There was no longer any value in saving him. Only vengeance remained. With nothing left to protect, his killing intent surged to its peak. With the battle prowess of a 4-star genius, even if Linghan proved troublesome, could that woman also escape death? Linghan stepped forward, positioning himself before Shui Yanyu with a faint smile. "See? You still need me to protect you." Shui Yanyu was speechless. This man was truly abnormal. How could anyone treat him as merely a Shattering Void tier cultivator? An unsettling thought crossed her mind. When Linghan stepped into the Mountain River tier, what kind of terrifying existence would he become? Linghan nodded lightly, as if reading her thoughts. "I'm also curious how strong I'll be when I reach the Mountain River tier." Shui Yanyu blinked in surprise. "You know what I'm thinking? It's written all over your face." The old man's roar cut through their exchange like thunder. "Do you two think I am not here?" Saber in hand, he charged forward like a raging storm. Linghan laughed, his spirit rising. "Come, let's work together, just like before." "And," Shui Yanyu responded, her eyes sharpening. They had fought side by side before, slaying demonic beasts stronger than themselves. Now, they faced a far more terrifying enemy. Peng, peng, peng. The clash erupted. The old man's strength was overwhelming. Once he closed the distance, Linghan's annihilating Dragon Star arrow lost its full effectiveness. Only the 7-kill subduing soul technique could interfere slightly, but its influence was limited. After all, the old man had cultivated for tens of thousands of years. His spirit was as solid as a mountain, difficult to shake. Furthermore, he focused entirely on Shui Yanyu. At close range, his attacks pressed her relentlessly. Linghan dared not use his arrow recklessly. If he miscalculated, Shui Yanyu herself might fall. Under the old man's pressure, Shui Yanyu quickly found herself struggling. Her strength was at the late stage of the low extreme. The old man, however, stood at the peak of the medium extreme. The gap between them was vast. In the immortal realm, even a small difference could determine life and death. And this was far beyond a minor difference. After just over 100 exchanges, she was wounded. At first, the injury was light, but it would not remain so. Soon, it would deepen, then worsen, until finally, it would claim her life. Any vile thoughts the old man might have had before had vanished. Now, there was only one goal: kill her. At least then half his vengeance would be fulfilled. Linghan's expression darkened. He could not watch her die. Not like this. 7-kill subduing soul technique. A surge of spiritual force struck. The old man froze, just for a fleeting moment. But that moment was enough. It was precisely this brief disruption that had allowed Shui Yanyu to survive over 100 exchanges earlier. Linghan did not hesitate. His divine sense surged outward, wrapping around the old man like invisible chains. Then, with a single decisive thought, he dragged him directly into the Black Tower. Shui Yanyu raised her sword, ready to strike. But suddenly, Her target vanished. She froze, her eyes widened in shock. Where? Where did he go? Her voice trembled with disbelief. Could it be? This old man also possessed the power of instant teleportation? Silence fell upon the battlefield, heavy and uncertain, as the truth remained hidden beyond her understanding. The wind in the ravine carried a faint chill, whispering through tangled vines like the breath of unseen spirits. Shu Yanyu stood poised, her sword held steady, her gaze sharp as frost. Not a trace of carelessness could be seen in her stance, for the enemy they had just faced was no ordinary foe, but one who could vanish between breaths, slipping through space itself like a ghost. Such an opponent was enough to make even a seasoned cultivator's heart tremble. "Be careful," she warned, her voice taut with vigilance, her eyes sweeping the surroundings for even the faintest ripple of danger. Yet beside her, Ling Han merely smiled, as though the tension in the air did not concern him in the slightest. "Be careful of what?" he asked lightly, almost teasing. Shui Yanyu's brows knit together in frustration, her patience thinning. "That old man," she snapped. "Did you not see? He vanished right before our eyes." Ling Han scratched his head as though only just recalling the matter, then spread his hands with casual ease. "Oh, him. It should be impossible for him to come back." Those words struck Shu Yanyu like a bolt of lightning. Her eyes widened, realization dawning in an instant. You? Her voice trembled with disbelief. "You pulled him into your spatial god tool?" Ling Han let out a long sigh, shaking his head slightly. "You finally figured it out." But Shui Yanyu did not relax. Instead, her expression grew even more complicated. She shook her head repeatedly, rejecting the idea outright. "No, that's not possible," she said firmly. "A spatial god tool is meant for storage. If someone resists, how could you force them inside? With that old man's strength, there is no way you could have dragged him in against his will." Her voice grew sharper as her reasoning continued to unfold. "And it has already been so long. If he truly entered, he should have broken free by now." Ling Han only smiled, a faint glimmer of mystery dancing in his eyes. "My spatial god tool is a little different," he said calmly. "Even if a heavenly body tier elite enters, whether they stand or kneel depends entirely on my mood." Silence fell. Shui Yanyu stared at him, her mind shaken to its core. If what he said was true, then the implications were terrifying. Did that not mean that even the mighty empress of the chaotic star's majestic empire, an existence towering above countless cultivators, would have her life and death decided by Ling Han if she stepped into that space? A chill crept down her spine. This man? Could he truly have come from a small world? "What's wrong?" Ling Han chuckled, tilting his head slightly. "Have you been stunned by my handsomeness?" His playful tone snapped Shui Yanyu out of her shock. Her eyes flickered, and then, as though struck by a sudden thought, she spoke again. "Then all those demonic beasts we encountered before," she said slowly. "You could have simply drawn them into your spatial god tool, couldn't you?" Ling Han froze for a brief moment. That single hesitant sound was enough. Shui Yanyu's expression darkened instantly, anger flaring in her eyes like wildfire. "There were so many times I was nearly gravely injured," she burst out. "You didn't use it because you didn't trust me." Ling Han laughed, though there was a hint of helplessness in it. "But I trust you now, don't I? Otherwise, I could have just stood by and watched that old man kill you." "You're twisting the truth," Shui Yanyu retorted, her voice sharp with indignation. "No matter what, you simply didn't trust me." Ling Han shrugged, still smiling, but his tone softened with a trace of seriousness. "Senior sister," he said, "have you become too immersed in your role? We are only pretending to be lovers. We haven't truly entrusted our hearts to each other." Those words fell like a cold blade. Shu Yanyu's face paled, her expression turning ashen. Without another word, she swung her sword violently, slashing at the surrounding vines as if venting the storm in her heart. Her lips pressed tightly together, betraying the turmoil within. Ling Han watched her in silence. Had he gone too far? But the truth remained. Between them, it had always been an act. Beyond that fragile pretense, there was no deeper bond. And a secret as vast as the spatial god tool, how could it be revealed so easily? If it had been someone like the Rain Emperor, decisive and ruthless, Shui Yanyu might have already been silenced forever to protect such a secret. Compared to that, Ling Han's choice to save her, To reveal even a fraction was already a sign of leniency. Yet somehow, he now seemed like the one in the wrong. Women? Truly incomprehensible. He shook his head inwardly, then turned his attention to the corpses of the two Lang clan youths, swiftly dealing with them before stepping forward to assist Shu Yanyu in clearing the vines. "Stay away from me," she said coldly, her expression like frozen jade. This time, Ling Han did not retreat. Without a word, he simply continued cutting through the vines beside her. "Shameless," she muttered, though the edge in her voice had softened ever so slightly. And indeed, as time passed, the storm in her heart seemed to ease. The frost in her expression thawed bit by bit. Ling Han let out a quiet breath. At last, the rain had passed and the sky was clearing. Soon, more figures appeared from behind them. Cultivators clad in the insignia of the chaotic star's majestic empire. Recognizing Shui Yanyu, they quickly joined forces, and with their combined strength, their progress surged forward. One group became two became many. Before long, over 100 cultivators gathered, forming a formidable force that surged through the ravine like a roaring tide. With such numbers, conflict became unlikely. No one possessed the absolute confidence to annihilate their opponents without consequence. A reckless clash could easily end with both sides suffering grievous losses. And after all, they had come here for Mountain River stones, not pointless slaughter. If battle was desired, the battlefield between the three great majestic empires would always be open. Thus, an unspoken truce held. Together, they swept aside all obstacles in their path. Even the fearsome demonic tree, sensing the overwhelming pressure, chose to uproot itself and flee rather than risk annihilation. In this moment, that brainless tree displayed more wisdom than many demonic beasts, an irony that would leave observers speechless. At last, they emerged from the ravine, and just as swiftly as it had formed, the alliance dissolved. Without hesitation, each cultivator scattered in different directions, their figures vanishing like fleeting shadows. No bonds had been formed, only temporary cooperation born of necessity. In such a place, even allies from the same clan could not be fully trusted. Yet Ling Han and Shui Yanyu were an exception. Though their relationship had begun as a mere act, something unspoken had grown between them, a tacit understanding forged through shared trials. And now that Ling Han had revealed part of the Black Tower's secret, he no longer concealed it. As they traveled onward, whenever they encountered demonic beasts of the Mountain River tier's low extreme, Ling Han would act without hesitation. A single strike, a beast stunned. Then, with effortless ease, he would draw it into the Black Tower, like plucking fruit from a tree. Simple, efficient, unstoppable. Only when they encountered beasts of the medium extreme did even Ling Han find himself unable to contend, forcing them to retreat. Even so, their gains were astonishing. In merely 2 days, they had slain or captured over 100 demonic beasts. Shui Yanyu could scarcely believe it. Even without Mountain River stones, the value of the spiritual meat alone was immense beyond measure. And at last, their efforts bore fruit. They obtained a Mountain River stone. It was a deep, dark green, almost translucent, like jade carved by the heavens themselves. Holding it in one's hand brought a refreshing sensation, as though one's spirit was being cleansed. Extraordinary at a glance. Without hesitation, Shui Yanyu tossed it toward Ling Han. "Refine it quickly," she said. "Once you form your mountains and rivers, you'll truly have the power to move freely here." Ling Han nodded. He did not seek to advance far within the Mountain River tier just yet. What mattered most was to establish his mountains and rivers, to step into the realm of immortal level cultivation. It was a pity. This stone held no special attribute. Just as he was about to proceed, "Halt!" A shout cut through the air like thunder. 2 groups burst forth from the side. The front group, 3 cultivators, fled desperately, while behind them, 7 figures gave chase with murderous intent. "Leave the Mountain River stone and we'll spare your lives," the pursuers roared. The 3 in front paid them no heed. How could they? They had come for this very treasure. To surrender it now would be to throw away everything. With gritted teeth, one of them suddenly produced a pair of wings. Pressing them onto his back, a thunderous sound erupted. Hong! 2 massive wings, each stretching 9 meters, unfurled behind him. Without hesitation, the other 2 grabbed onto his legs. With a powerful beat of those wings, the 3 soared into the sky. In the immortal realm, even mountain river tier cultivators could not fly freely, unless born with wings or aided by flight god tools. This was such a treasure. The 7 pursuers halted, their expressions darkening with helpless frustration. They had no means to follow. Truthfully, the 3 fugitives had not intended to use this precious item so soon. But upon spotting Linghan and Shu Yanyu ahead, they feared being caught in a pincer attack. Thus, though it pained them, they had activated it. After all, it had limited uses. Their loss was inevitable. The 7 turned their gaze toward Linghan and Shu Yanyu. Cold smiles spread across their faces. "So," one of them sneered, "the mountain river stone is with you two. Hand it over." Another added, voice dripping with false righteousness, "We fought bitterly for it, only for those 3 to snatch it away. Since it has fallen into your hands, you should return what doesn't belong to you." Linghan and Shu Yanyu exchanged a glance. In that instant, a single thought surfaced in both their minds. These people truly had no shame.